I've been the app dude for a really long time, and to this day, people still come to me with different app and game ideas. So I thought it would be fun to explore, is it worth making a mobile game in 2021? If you weren't already aware, my name is Tez Fraser, and on this channel, we do tips, tricks, tutorials, and I talk about the games that I'm making. Stay tuned and let's figure out together, is making a mobile game in 2021 worth your time? By the way, I'm currently working on my game rated Mutant. And if you want to see a little bit more about that, links are in the description. Let's get into it. So I'd say for most people, you fall into two camps. Either you think you're going to strike it rich with mobile games, or you think that mobile games are a complete waste of your time. But honestly, I feel like the answer is a little bit of both. So what do I mean by that? What I mean is, there are definitely ways to make money with mobile games, but it is certainly harder than most people think. So let's take a look at some statistics, right? Mobile games to this day still make the most money. Out of the big pie, you probably think that console games make the most money, or maybe even PC games, but that is not true. It is still mobile games to this day, and it has been for several years. And honestly, that makes complete sense, right? Everyone has a smartphone. Everyone has an iPod or an iPad. They have something. Even children have something they play with these days. So that is the biggest market there is. So why wouldn't mobile games take home the most revenue? So that is already one pro of making a mobile game, is that it's a huge audience and there's potential for lots of money. On the flip side of that, we have to understand that there are more mobile games being submitted daily than there are games in pretty much any other platform, meaning the competition is that much stiffer. And if we want to break it down even more, then we should break it down by specific mobile platform. To this day, iOS makes the most money. That's how it's been pretty much the entire time. Now, at some point, there was a statistic that said something along the lines of, for every $1 that you make on the App Store, you make 70 cents on the Amazon App Store and 30 cents on Google Play. Now, while I'm not sure if that figure still holds true, it is definitely still true that you are going to make more money on iOS compared to any of the Android platforms. That is just statistically true. Which means that if you are creating an Android-only game, you are likely not going to see very high revenue. There is also the idea of the type of game you are making. If you're making a port of a game that is already successful somewhere else, then that game will probably do pretty successful on mobile. We have seen that with many games before. You can look at Dead Cells or The First Tree. These are games that have success on the mobile store, but also had success on other platforms, meaning they already had a foot in the door. Now, for most people, if you're making a game fresh, it's going to be much harder. Hyper-casual games is a very, very saturated market. Not to mention, there's a complete science to making a hyper-casual game. Most people think that it's very simple, like, oh yeah, I can make the next Flappy Bird, I can make the next, those weird games where you kind of just swipe the ball that does the paint thing. You guys know what I'm talking about. Anyways, what I mean is that those games are psychologically made to be addicting for people. And they're also backed by huge companies. There are companies that make a ton of money off basically acquiring a bunch of addictive games and cross-promoting them. So honestly, if you are on your own trying to make a hyper-casual game, you are already at a disadvantage because you are not in that network. Now, there are still many reasons to make mobile games, right? I know you just heard me say basically that it's an uphill battle, but it's also a great way to learn how to make games. That's how I learned how to make games. In fact, 90% of the things that I've done have been mobile, and that's all right. It's a great way to start. It's also a great way to build your resume. Most places that you might apply to, let's say if you're not doing the indie dev thing, are going to require some published work. So if you can self-publish a game or two of yours, that is definitely going to go a long way, or at least a further way than not having anything at all. It's also a great way to learn mechanics. You can learn how games function. You can learn about interacting with users. I probably will not publish another mobile game myself that isn't already an established game somewhere else. And why is that? Well, honestly, one of the main reasons is that developing mobile games is kind of hell on earth. You are constantly have to deal with updated policies, updated frameworks, SDKs that are deprecated. I've had games removed from the App Store all the time for just new things. Every year, Apple requires something new. Every year, Google Play requires something new. Every year, Amazon requires something new. It's actually very hard to keep track of, especially if you have multiple mobile games. It really does become tiresome and almost an uphill battle. In fact, I've personally decided that I'm going to update all of my mobile games one last time, and if they get removed, they get removed, because I'm not sure if it is actually worth the upkeep anymore. There's also the fact that the app stores that you are on do cost money to host. So yes, on Steam it costs $100 per application to get on, but on Apple it's $100 a year, meaning if you only publish one mobile game, depending on how long you want it to be on the store, we're looking at several $100s over the years. Whereas if you would publish the same game to Steam, it is a one-time $100 fee, meaning overall it is cheaper for you to publish there. Not to mention, if you go to somewhere like Itch, which means you are completely bypassing a publishing fee. I will say there is something for being the first to a platform. Now, the ship has mostly sailed on this, but there are probably a few ways that you can still get in on the ground floor. So what I mean by that is, if there's a new platform out and you're the one person that has a calculator app, guess what? You're probably going to make a lot of money making the calculator app, because it is the only thing available. People will buy it. And that's kind of what I did for my own mobile applications for the most part. I was one of the first people to adopt the Amazon App Store, and I made a few $1,000s doing that. But honestly, a lot of that is luck. You just have to be pretty cognizant of what is happening, and I do not think that one should depend on that. An example in recent times that might be along the same path is with Apple Arcade and Google Play Pass. I mean, now that they are out for some time, it's probably not as viable as before, but being one of the first games on those platforms is definitely going to bolster your sales. Just to get back on the idea of a crowded market, we really need to consider how many games are in the App Store. And if you are truly making something unique, if you are going to make something similar to another game, it's probably not worth your time. There's probably a mega corporation behind that now. The final point I'll bring up is that mobile games sometimes have a stigma. Some people talk very condescendingly about mobile games. They don't really consider mobile games to be worth your time. And more so, they don't consider mobile gamers to be worth their time, which I truly believe is incorrect and is honestly a bit of a gatekeeping way to think about things, but I will say that it is there. I've personally had employers say things like, yeah, you did your little games, little apps, things like that, keeping in mind that I made what I consider pretty robust games and applications. And honestly, in some communities, people will talk badly about games, like even internally. They'll say that the mobile market is sucking the game world dry. They'll say that because of free to play and things like that mobile games are completely diminished. And while I don't think that should stop you from making mobile games, you should probably consider if you are willing to deal with that. So I think all in all, for most people, the answer is no. You should not make a mobile game. But there's definitely opportunity still in mobile games, obviously. You just need to find if that opportunity makes sense for you. For the average person, the average Joe Blow, it probably isn't worth it. But for an experienced person, maybe a game that already has an existing following that could potentially translate well to mobile, then yes, it's probably worth your time. Figure out how to create your mobile game. But for the average person, unless you're doing it as a hobby, do not expect to make the millions of dollars get rich quick that you think it is, because it truly is not. Anyways, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Please like, share, and subscribe, and let me know what you guys think about this. I want to see in the comments your guys' opinion on mobile games. Do you enjoy them? Do you think they're a waste of people's time? Let's have this be a discussion between us all. Also, please don't forget to check out my game rated Mutant, links in the description, and I will see you guys for the next video.